Imagine the world in the early 1980s. There was no Facebook, no Instagram, no constant buzzing of notifications that keep us awake at night today. The internet was still a mysterious concept, living inside labs and government projects, unknown to ordinary families. People connected face-to-face by phone calls or through handwritten letters that traveled days before reaching loved ones. And in that world, in a quiet corner of New York, in a small hospital in White Plains, a boy was born who would one day revolutionize human connection itself. May 14, 1984. Edward and Karen Zuckerberg held their newborn son in their arms. They named him Mark Elliott Zuckerberg. Edward, a dentist, ran a practice from their family home. Karen, a psychiatrist, understood the human mind, emotions, and how fragile yet powerful they could be. The family was not extraordinarily rich, not poor either. They lived in Dobbs Ferry, a small, peaceful village in Westchester County. The air smelled of maple trees, the streets were calm, and the world felt safe. Inside that family home, 4 children grew up. Mark was the second, with 3 sisters, Randy, Donna, and Ariel. Unlike many other families where siblings often fought for toys or attention, the Zuckerberg household had a different energy. Theirs was a house of curiosity. Books stacked on shelves, computers starting to enter the scene, long conversations about science, psychology, and the world. But even in such a vibrant household, Mark was different. Childhood sparks. From a very young age, Mark showed signs that he wasn't going to follow the usual path. While most kids were fascinated by toy cars and cartoons, Mark found fascination in understanding how things worked. His father, Edward, noticed it first. Whenever Edward had to repair something small, maybe a broken device, or even something in his dental office, Mark would stand nearby, silently observing every step. He wasn't just watching, he was learning. Karen, his mother, saw another side. Mark was not the most outgoing child. He didn't always blend into large groups easily. Sometimes he preferred the quiet corners, lost in thought, scribbling ideas, or staring at the family computer. A few teachers even worried that he was too quiet, but Karen knew better. She could see the storm brewing in his mind. And soon the family computer, an Atari 800, became Mark's favorite playground. At age 10, when most kids were still stuck in video games, Mark was writing his own simple programs. He didn't just play games, he wanted to know how games were built. He would take apart software, study the logic, then attempt to build something new from scratch. By age 12, he had built something remarkable, ZuckNet. It was a simple messaging program that allowed computers in the house to communicate with one another. His father used it in his dental office so the receptionist could message him instead of yelling across the hall. Imagine this. While the world was still discovering email, a 12-year-old boy had created an internal instant messaging service for his family. When asked later why he made it, Mark said, "I just thought it was easier. Instead of someone having to shout, they could just ping me." That was Mark's genius. Even as a child, he didn't build things for the sake of showing off. He built them to solve problems, to make life smoother, to connect people in ways they hadn't imagined. But childhood genius doesn't always come without its challenges, the struggles of being different. At school, Mark wasn't the loudest in the class. He wasn't the most athletic or the most charming. While other kids bonded over sports or hobbies, Mark often stayed in his own bubble. He wasn't isolated completely, but he wasn't always understood. Some classmates saw him as the computer kid. Some teachers found him too intense. And Mark himself, though confident in his mind, often felt that he didn't fit into the usual rhythm of teenage life. But his parents never pushed him to be normal. Instead, they nurtured his unique brilliance. Edward hired a private computer tutor named David Newman. Newman later recalled, "Honestly, it was tough teaching him. Within minutes, he was asking questions beyond my knowledge. I had to go home, study myself, then come back the next day to stay one step ahead of him. But even then, he was ahead." That's how fast Mark's mind worked. By his early teens, Mark wasn't just programming small tools. He was building games, software, and even AI-like programs for fun. He once created a game inspired by Star Wars, where players could fight using characters he coded. His friends would test it, laugh, and enjoy. But to Mark, it was never just a game. It was a challenge, a puzzle, something to break apart and rebuild better. Family influence and human side. But let's pause here. It's easy to look at Mark's story and only see the machines, the codes, the brilliance. Yet there was always a human side to his journey. He loved his sisters dearly. Randy, the eldest, later said, "Mark was the only boy in the house, but he never acted like the spoiled one. He was competitive, yes, but he had this calm focus about him. Family dinners were filled with debates, laughter, and sometimes little arguments. Karen, being a psychiatrist, often encouraged open communication. She wanted her children not just to succeed academically, but to understand people, their emotions, their struggles. That influence would stay with Mark, because while his genius was in code, his empire would later be built on understanding one thing: human connection. The teenage years, dreams take shape. As Mark entered high school, he attended Phillips Exeter Academy, a private school in New Hampshire known for excellence. And here his world began to expand. Called, he was exposed to an environment of competitiveness, brilliance, and ambition. Students there weren't ordinary. Many came from elite families, destined for Ivy League colleges. For Mark, this was both inspiring and intimidating. But he thrived. At Exeter, he not only excelled in computer science, but also developed a love for literature, fencing, and classical languages like Latin and Greek. Yes, the man who would build the world's most advanced social network also studied the ancient words of philosophers. His friends remember him as a boy with dry humor, quick wit, and a quiet confidence. He wasn't a social butterfly, but when he did speak, people listened. And of course, his coding didn't stop. By high school, he had built programs that shocked even his teachers. One was Synapse Media Player, a music program that could learn users' preferences and suggest songs, basically an early version of what Spotify and Apple Music do today. Microsoft and AOL tried to buy it. Imagine that, a teenager still in school being courted by tech giants offering millions of dollars. But Mark refused to sell. Why? It wasn't about the money, he later explained. I wanted to keep building. That decision to say no to millions as a teenager tells you everything about him. For Mark, creation was always more important than cash. Vision was more important than valuation. Struggles beneath the success. Yet these were not all golden years. Behind the brilliance, Mark struggled with questions that haunt many teenagers. Who am I? Where do I belong? What's my purpose? He had moments of self-doubt. He wasn't always sure if people liked him for who he was or just because he was the genius kid. He sometimes felt pressure, the expectation to succeed, to outshine, to constantly deliver something new. And while he had friends, he wasn't always the easiest person to connect with emotionally. Some found him distant, others thought he was arrogant. But in reality, Mark was simply focused. Too focused sometimes, to the point of unintentionally pushing people away, the silent turning point. But perhaps the most important thing about these years wasn't the programs he built or the offers he turned down. It was the mindset he was building brick by brick. Mark was learning to question everything. Why should communication be limited by distance? Why should technology only live in labs and offices? Why shouldn't ordinary people have access to extraordinary tools? He didn't have all the answers yet, but those questions, they burned inside him. And slowly they were shaping him into the man who would later redefine connection itself. Voiceover softens, cinematic pause. The boy who once built a messaging system for his family, the teenager who turned down millions to keep creating, the young mind who often felt out of place in social circles. He was about to step into the next chapter of his journey, a chapter filled with struggles, heartbreaks, failures, and breakthroughs. A chapter that would begin in the ivy-covered walls of Harvard University, where the world would first hear of something called Facebook. The story now moves to the year 2002. The world is standing at the edge of a digital revolution. Google is rising. Apple is quietly working on something called the iPod. The word social media doesn't even exist yet. And a young man, just 18 years old, carrying his backpack and his dreams, is walking through the iconic gates of Harvard University. Mark Zuckerberg. To some, Harvard is the end goal, the pinnacle of achievement. To Mark, it's a beginning, a playground, a testing ground for ideas that are still raw, unshaped, waiting to be born. Arrival at Harvard. Harvard in the early 2000s was buzzing. Ambitious students everywhere, future lawyers, doctors, politicians, scientists. Everyone was hungry to leave their mark. Mark moved into Kirkland House, one of Harvard's residential dorms. His room, cluttered with computers, wires, soda cans, and half-finished projects. He wasn't there to blend in. He wasn't there to just get grades. He was there to create. But Harvard wasn't just about academics. It was also about social life, about belonging to elite clubs, fraternities, societies. For many students, fitting in was everything. For Mark, it was different. He wasn't the tall, charming figure who drew attention at parties. He wasn't the smooth talker who commanded the room. But he had something else, a quiet confidence, a restless energy, and a laptop that rarely left his side. These first sparks face smash. One cold night in October 2003, Mark sat in his dorm, frustrated and restless. Harvard had a long tradition of exclusivity. Students were obsessed with prestige, with beauty, with who belonged where. And Mark, always the hacker, always the challenger of systems, thought to himself, what if I could build something fun, something that shook things up? That night, with cans of beer on his desk and lines of code spilling from his fingers, he built FaceMash. It was brutally simple. The website pulled photos of Harvard students from the university's directories, placed two side by side, and asked users, who's hotter? Within hours, the site exploded. Students were clicking, laughing, sharing, traffic surged. But soon, trouble followed. The university accused Mark of hacking into the system, stealing student photos without permission, and violating privacy. He was called before Harvard's administrative board. He could have been expelled, but instead something surprising happened. While the administration punished him lightly, many students, even those who criticized FaceMash, were fascinated. Because beneath the controversy, one thing was clear. Mark had built something that caught fire, something that spread through campus like wildfire, something social. Later, Mark would reflect, it wasn't about the looks, it was about building something that people wanted to use. And that lesson would stay with him, the idea of Facebook. After the FaceMash incident, Mark could have laid low, but that wasn't his style. He was already thinking bigger. At Harvard, one strange reality was that students, though living in close proximity, often didn't know much about each other. Connections were limited by social clubs, dorms, and small circles. And Mark wondered, why? Why should information about people, their networks, their lives be so fragmented? What if there was a way to bring it all together? One evening, while coding in his dorm room, he turned to his friend Eduardo Saverin. Eduardo was a Brazilian student majoring in economics. Unlike Mark, Eduardo was social, outgoing, good with people. Mark said to him, I think I'm onto something. What if we had a website where people could put up their profiles, their photos, their info, and connect with each other across campus? Eduardo raised an eyebrow. Like an online directory? Mark smiled. Yes, but not just a directory, a network, a way for people to see who's who knows who, and to feel connected. Imagine if Harvard students could see each other's profiles instantly. Imagine if every campus had it. Eduardo thought for a moment, then he nodded. That could work, but you'll need resources. And just like that, the seed of Facebook was planted. The Harvard dorm room, birth of the Facebook. On February 4th, 2004, from the messy dorm room of Kirkland House, with pizza boxes stacked on the floor and wires tangled across the desk, Mark and his small team launched the Facebook.com. At first, it was limited to Harvard students. A simple interface, profiles, pictures, relationship status, friend requests, but instantly it struck a nerve. Within 24 hours, hundreds had signed up. Within a week, over half of Harvard students were using it. Word spread. Soon, students from Yale, Columbia, and Stanford were begging for access. It was addictive. It was powerful. It was unlike anything anyone had seen before. Mark later said, I didn't set out to build a company. I just wanted to solve a problem, and people came. But success was not going to come without battles. The Winklevoss controversy. Enter Cameron and Tyler Winklevoss. Tall, athletic, rowers, part of Harvard's elite. Along with their partner, Divya Narendra, they had been working on their own social network idea called Harvard Connection, later known as Connect You. When Facebook exploded, they accused Mark of stealing their idea. The controversy was explosive. Accusations flew, lawsuits followed. The Winklevoss twins said Mark had agreed to help with their project, but instead used their concept to build his own. Mark, however, defended himself fiercely. If they were going to build Facebook, they would have built Facebook. Years later, Facebook settled with the Winklevoss twins for millions. But in those early days, the battle nearly consumed Mark. The press painted him as a thief, a manipulator. The weight of accusations was heavy, and yet he kept building, dropping out a risky choice. By mid-2004, Facebook had expanded beyond Harvard. Over 1 million users, then 2 million, then 5 million. It was spreading like wildfire across universities. Mark faced a choice: stay at Harvard, finish his degree, live a stable life, or drop out and chase the unknown. One night, he sat with Eduardo Saverin. Eduardo, Mark, this is crazy. You're going to leave Harvard? What if it fails? Mark, what if it doesn't? What if this becomes the way the world connects? That was the moment, the leap, the decision that separated dreamers from doers. Mark Zuckerberg dropped out of Harvard. To some, it was madness. To others, it was destiny. Where's in California? The move that changed everything. Mark and his small team moved to Palo Alto, California, the heart of Silicon Valley. They rented a small house that became half office, half living space. Days blurred into nights, nights into mornings, coding marathons, investor meetings, energy drinks. It wasn't glamorous, it was chaotic, but it was alive. In California, they met Sean Parker, the co-founder of Napster. Charismatic, bold, unpredictable. Sean believed in Facebook more than anyone. He became their first president, guiding Mark through the dangerous waters of Silicon Valley. It was Sean who told Mark, drop the, just Facebook, it's cleaner. And just like that, Facebook was born, the Eduardo Rift. But success also began to crack friendships. Eduardo Saverin, Mark's first partner, began clashing with him. Eduardo wanted to monetize quickly to bring ads, make money fast. Mark resisted. He believed growth was more important than profit at that stage. Tensions grew, misunderstandings multiplied. Eventually, Eduardo was pushed out of the company, his shares diluted. It was heartbreaking. Eduardo had been there from the beginning, in that dorm room, supporting Mark. But business is brutal, and Mark had to choose between friendship and vision. Years later, Eduardo reflected, Mark is brilliant, but sometimes brilliance comes with ruthlessness, the struggles behind the success. By 2005, 2006, Facebook had millions of users. Investors were pouring in money. The world was paying attention. But behind the curtain, Mark was under enormous pressure. He was barely 22, leading a company growing faster than anything in history, sued by the Winklevoss twins, estranged from Eduardo, and doubted by many who believed Facebook was just a fad. There were sleepless nights, decisions that felt impossible, and moments of crushing loneliness. But through it all, one thing kept him going, the belief that he was building something bigger than himself, the expansion. In 2006, Facebook opened to the public, beyond universities. Anyone with an email could join. The floodgates opened. 10 million users, 20 million, 50 million. It was no longer just a college tool. It was a global movement. And Mark Zuckerberg, the boy who once coded in his childhood bedroom, was now the leader of a revolution. Voiceover softens emotional tone. But let's not forget, this rise came with a price. Friendships lost, controversies gained, nights of doubt, days of endless coding, the weight of millions of expectations pressing down on a young man barely in his 20s. This was not the end of the story. It was just the beginning, because with every empire built come challenges, enemies, and storms no one can predict. And for Mark Zuckerberg, the real battles were only about to begin. The boy who once coded in a messy Harvard dorm room had now built something that was no longer just a website. It was becoming a world, a parallel universe where people could share, connect, and belong. But with power comes the storm. The world takes notice. By 2007, Facebook had exploded. Millions of users worldwide. Mark Zuckerberg, barely in his 20s, was now being called a boy genius, a college dropout billionaire, and even the next Bill Gates. Silicon Valley was in awe. Newspapers put him on covers. Venture capitalists chased him. Tech giants circled him like sharks. Google wanted to buy Facebook. Yahoo offered him $1 billion. $1 billion for a company run out of rented houses with beanbags and pizza boxes. His board members, his friends, his investors all urged him, take it, Mark, sell it. You'll be rich beyond imagination. But Mark looked them in the eye and said, Facebook isn't about money. It's about connecting people. We're just getting started. It was bold, it was reckless, it was visionary. And it was a decision that defined him, the young CEO. But here's the thing no one saw. Behind the headlines, behind the billions, behind the fame was a young man drowning in responsibility. Mark was 23, and he was suddenly leading a company with hundreds of employees, investors, global media scrutiny, and a user base growing faster than any business in history. Imagine being in your early 20s, your friends still in college, while you're sitting across from world leaders, CEOs, and regulators, defending decisions that affect millions of lives. There were moments when Mark sat alone at night, in his office at Palo Alto, staring at the glowing Facebook logo on his screen, asking himself, am I ready for this? Am I enough? But he couldn't afford weakness. He couldn't show doubt because the world was watching. The growth features that changed the world. 2006, the news feed was launched. At first, people hated it. They thought it was creepy, invasive. Why should others see everything I do? Thousands protested. But Mark held his ground. He believed news feed would change how people consumed information. And he was right. It became the heartbeat of Facebook. 2007. The Facebook platform opened. Developers could build apps on Facebook. Remember Farmville? Those silly quizzes? They made Facebook a daily habit. 2012. Facebook acquired Instagram. People laughed at the $1 billion price tag for a tiny photo app. Today, Instagram is one of the most powerful social platforms on Earth. 2014. Facebook bought WhatsApp for $19 billion. The world gasped. But Mark wasn't just buying apps. He was buying the future of communication. Every step, every risky bet, every bold decision shaped Facebook into not just a platform, but an empire. The personal side, love and loss. But beyond the screens and headlines, Mark was still human. During his Harvard years, he had met Priscilla Chan, a medical student. She was warm, grounded, and saw Mark not as a CEO or a genius, but as a person. They began dating. Mark often said, "Priscilla keeps me grounded. She reminds me there's a life outside of code." Their relationship wasn't easy. Long hours, endless stress, controversies that never stopped. But Priscilla stayed by his side. In 2012, after Facebook's IPO, Mark and Priscilla quietly married in their backyard. No glitz, no paparazzi, just love, family, and a man finally taking a moment to breathe. But life wasn't always kind. The couple faced personal heartbreak, miscarriages, struggles of starting a family. Mark later wrote an emotional post on Facebook itself. "We realized how many people quietly face similar challenges. We want to share our story because talking about these things can bring hope." It was one of the rare times the world saw the vulnerable side of Mark Zuckerberg, not the CEO, not the billionaire, but the man. Eventually, they welcomed 2 daughters, Max and August. And for Mark, fatherhood changed everything. He often said, "When you become a parent, you stop thinking about yourself. You start thinking about the world your children will grow up in. That's the world I want to help build." The controversy shadows over the empire. But with greatness comes shadows, and Facebook's shadows were dark. Privacy scandals, data leaks, political manipulation, hate speech, fake news. The very platform built to connect people was now being accused of dividing them. The Cambridge Analytica scandal in 2018 was perhaps the biggest blow. Millions of users' data misused for political campaigns. The world was furious. Governments launched investigations. Protesters demanded accountability. Mark was called to testify before Congress. The world watched him sit in a suit, answering sharp questions from senators, his face calm but eyes heavy. "We didn't take a broad enough view of our responsibility," he admitted. "And that was a big mistake. It was my mistake. And I'm sorry." For once, the invincible boy genius looked human, flawed, vulnerable. The isolation of leadership. As Facebook grew into Meta, Mark's life became more isolated. Friends from Harvard? Gone. Eduardo estranged. Sean Parker distanced. Even his co-workers often saw him as a boss, not a peer. Being Mark Zuckerberg meant walking into every room with suspicion. Was he a genius or a villain, a visionary or a manipulator? The world divided into 2 camps, those who admired him and those who blamed him for society's ills. At night, alone in his mansion, one wonders, did Mark ever sit back and think about the price he had paid? The metaverse, his biggest gamble. In 2021, Mark made a shocking announcement. Facebook was no longer just Facebook. It was now Meta. His vision, the metaverse, a virtual world where people could work, play, live, and connect beyond physical limits. It was bold, risky. Billions of dollars poured into a dream many mocked as science fiction. Critics laughed, investors doubted. But Mark stood firm. "We're building the next chapter of the internet," he said. "This isn't just about screens, it's about experiences." It was déjà vu, like the early days of Facebook, when no one believed. Was he about to change the world again? Or was this the gamble that would break him? Only time will tell. Life lessons. From a dorm room to the world, Mark Zuckerberg's story isn't just about technology. It's about vision, about daring to be different, about sacrificing comfort for creation. From a quiet boy coding in his bedroom, to a college dropout building a network, to a young CEO facing lawsuits, betrayals, and scandals, to a father dreaming of a better world for his daughters. His journey teaches us, dreams often look crazy until they work. Success comes with sacrifices, friendships, comfort, peace. Failure is not the end, it's a step toward growth. Power without responsibility is dangerous, and every empire must face its shadows. No matter how big the world sees you, you're still human with love, loss, doubts, and hope. Mark Zuckerberg once said, "The biggest risk is not taking any risk. In a world that's changing so quickly, the only strategy guaranteed to fail is not taking risks." And that's his legacy, not just Facebook, not just Meta, but the courage to dream bigger than logic, to take risks bigger than fear, and to connect the world in ways no one thought possible. A young Mark in his Harvard dorm, typing furiously, unaware of the storm he's about to unleash. A grown Mark sitting in Congress, shoulders heavy with the weight of the world. A father Mark holding his daughters, smiling quietly in his backyard. Three faces of one man. One journey, from boy to billionaire, from dreamer to disruptor, from coder to connector of humanity. And his story is still being written. So let's dive into these 100 timeless takeaways from Zuckerberg's extraordinary life. 1. Dream so big that it scares people. 2. Start small, even billion-dollar ideas begin in dorm rooms. 3. Passion matters more than resources. 4. Don't wait for the perfect time, just start. 5. Believe in your vision even when others laugh. 6. Code or create something that solves a real human need. 7. Fail fast, but learn faster. 8. Work on problems that impact millions, not just yourself. 9. Simplicity is power design, things people actually use. 10. Don't be afraid of rejection, it means you're trying something bold. 11. Surround yourself with smart, driven people. 12. Collaboration creates miracles. 13. Obsession can be fuel if you channel it right. 14. Focus is your superpower. Eliminate distractions. 15. Great ideas don't shout. They whisper until the world hears them. 16. Stay curious. Never stop asking questions. 17. When doors close, build your own doors. 18. Risks are the price of changing the world. 19. Long nights build empires. 20. Your critics can sometimes be your best teachers. 21. Innovation means breaking the rules of the old game. 22. If it doesn't exist, create it. 23. Success is built on thousands of tiny failures. 24. Feedback sharpens vision. 25. Move fast, momentum creates energy. 26. Done is better than perfect. 27. Build for people, not for investors. 28. Be willing to pivot, rigidity kills innovation. 29. Trust your gut when no one else does. 30. Every empire started as an experiment. 31. Don't be afraid to compete with giants. 32. When you're underestimated, you're free to surprise. 33. Protect your time like treasure. 34. A clear mission guides every hard choice. 35. Money follows value, not the other way around. 36. Youth isn't a weakness, it's an advantage. 37. Never measure yourself by age, measure by impact. 38. Be stubborn on vision, flexible on execution. 39. Take pride in being misunderstood. It means you're early. 40. Solve problems nobody else dares to touch. 41. Criticism is proof you're making waves. 42. Keep building even when the world doubts you. 43. Data tells stories, learn to listen. 44. Culture beats strategy in the long run. 45. Hire people who challenge you, not just agree with you. 46. Humility keeps you learning. 47. Stay grounded no matter how high you rise. 48. Don't seek fame, seek impact. 49. Every product you build is a reflection of you. 50. The internet rewards speed and courage. 51. Success is never final, keep evolving. 52. Failures are tuition fees for success. 53. Share credit generously. 54. Fear is a compass pointing toward growth. 55. Leadership means serving the mission, not your ego. 56. Silence often speaks louder than noise. 57. When in doubt, build. 58. Celebrate progress but never settle. 59. Stay connected to your roots. 60. Remember, people profits. 61. Do things that seem crazy until they work. 62. Vision attracts believers. Execution keeps them. 63. Your reputation is your shadow, protect it. 64. Transparency builds trust. 65. Always test, improve, repeat. 66. Don't chase trends, set them. 67. Think global, act human. Or 68. Big dreams need bigger patience. 69. Stay adaptable. The digital world changes daily. 70. Burnout kills brilliance, rest is part of the strategy. 71. Lead with clarity, not confusion. 72. Learn faster than your competitors. 73. Curiosity builds empires. 74. Don't manage people, inspire them. 75. Critics fade, results remain. 76. Growth means discomfort. 77. Great leaders listen more than they speak. 78. Every setback is a story in progress. 79. Be okay with being the weird one. 80. Persistence beats genius when genius quits. 81. Keep your mission bigger than your mistakes. 82. Protect your long-term vision from short-term noise. 83. Fail forward, stumble closer to success. 84. Technology should bring people together, not pull them apart. 85. Don't just build businesses, build ecosystems. 86. Look beyond today. Imagine the next 50 years. 87. Greatness is a marathon, not a sprint. 88. Share your story. People connect with authenticity. 89. Never stop learning, even when you're at the top. 90. Remember, the next great idea may come from anyone. 91. Big risks create big legacies. 92. Stay hungry, stay foolish forever. 93. Legacy is about people, not numbers. 94. Lead with vision, not fear. 95. Don't copy, create. 96. Your best ideas may feel crazy at first. 97. Keep improving. Nothing is ever truly finished. 98. Be kind on the way up. You'll meet the same faces on the way down. 99. The world belongs to builders. 100. And finally, never forget, one person, one idea, one belief can change how billions live their lives. And as the screen fades, imagine a quiet room where Mark, once again, sits in front of his computer late at night, typing away, not for money, not for fame, but for the mission to connect the world. And that's the greatest lesson. No dream is too big if your purpose is strong.